Right. Hey, hey, hey. Happy New Year once again. All right. Welcome to Trauma Talk Radio live broadcast with myself, your freedom coach, Natasha Miller. Trauma Talk Radio is an unconventional podcast committed to helping people live in freedom from trauma, one candid conversation at a time. And there are three components of Trauma Talk Radio. Number one is our interview shorts, and those are posted across all social media platforms. And that's just when we're out and about living our life and we interview everyday people about overcoming trauma. Then there's two, Dear Freedom Coach, and that is when we upload um, clips of me answering the interview questions that you all submit for myself, your freedom coach. So, dear freedom coach. And then third, we have our live broadcast, which is here on YouTube every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And what's special about our live broadcast is that viewers can call in for a candid conversation about trauma. Yeah. And so for the month of January, our theme is defining trauma. So we're talking about defining trauma all month. Last week, we talked about educational trauma definitions, and today we're engaging personal trauma definitions. And why is the exploration and engagement in these different trauma definitions necessary? Because trauma is subjective. What may be traumatic for me may not be traumatic for you, and so on. And so we want to break the barriers of communication and our understanding and comprehension and understanding one another by giving providing the safe space for us to explore the various ways in which we define trauma and the differences that we have, as well as the similarities, so that we can help one another overcome life traumas, because in life, trauma will happen. And we want to be equipped to navigate those situations well. All right, so let's get into our topic for this evening. Remember, for the live broadcast, we start off with trauma content, and then we open up the lines for candid conversations where viewers can call into the StreamYard link and join me here on the platform for a candid conversation, or continue to engage in conversation on through the chat. Trauma Talk Radio is all about dialogue, conversation. So we need the engagement to keep the live broadcast going. Otherwise, it tends to end shortly after the content portion. So let's get into our topic this evening: engaging personal trauma definitions. These trauma definitions are a few, highlighting some that came from some of our interview shorts, just interviewing people in various different places. So I went back through our archive and captured some of those great, significant trauma definitions. The first one we have is: trauma is past things that happened to you that still weigh heavy on your heart. This definition is from Miss AJ, and her interview was located in San Ramon, California. Next, trauma is when something beyond your moral code and comprehension capacity happens. Oof, that's deep. And this is from Dr. Flesher. This interview was in Berkeley, California. Next, we have from Walnut Creek, California, Miss Grace, that says trauma is something that is expected and unexpected simultaneously. Next, we have a personal definition from Ms. Brooke. Her interview was in Detroit, Michigan. She says, trauma is anything that negatively invades your peace without your permission and has a lasting impact. And then lastly, trauma is an opportunity to learn, grow, progress, and connect with others. Hey, hey, hey. There's always two sides to every story. So trauma isn't just an obstacle, trauma is an opportunity. It all matters on it's all about our perception, our perspective pertaining to the matter. In that particular, I'm gonna say this definition one more time. Trauma is an opportunity to learn, grow, progress, and connect with others. And this definition is from Mr. Max, and his interview was in Moraga, California. So that's awesome. So those are some of the personal trauma definitions that I wanted to highlight this evening. And then I also wanted to take a moment to connect defining trauma, engaging in personal trauma definitions to current event, especially since I live in California, born and raised in Northern California, the Bay Area. So I'm about a 6-hour drive from Los Angeles, California, where the fires are currently active and taking place. So I wanted to connect this conversation to this particular current event. And as for the fires in Los Angeles, is both a direct and indirect traumatic experience, meaning that for those who actually live in that region, it's a direct traumatic experience for them that's been impacted with the loss of their homes and communities and things of that nature from the fire. And then it's an indirect traumatic experience for those of us who do not live in that area, or even who reside in the surrounding areas that's not being impacted by the fire. So it's an indirect traumatic experience for us. We're witnessing it. We're seeing how this significant event is changing people's lives with this fire. So a couple of things that I wanted to highlight that is coming out of, it's an aftermath of trauma. This trauma with the fires is identity homelessness and homelessness. We know that homelessness is, I no longer have a home. My home has burnt down. Now I need a place to live. But the identity homelessness is where I really want to emphasize, because it's real. It is real. And I experienced identity homelessness when Hurricane Katrina occurred. Although I am born and raised here, I went to college, Dillard University in New Orleans, immediately after high school. New Orleans became like my home. By the time my sophomore year, I was off campus and had a roommate. Then she had relocated. Then I had my own 1-bedroom apartment after she relocated. Had my car, had my job, had my church. I had a plan to stay. Like, I was not coming back to California once I graduated Dillard. I didn't know for sure what I was going to do after Dillard. All I knew is that I wasn't coming back to California until Hurricane Katrina decides to show up 1 week into my senior year of college. Now half the city's gone, including my residence, my apartment, because I lived on the east, the side that was impacted the most. So now I have to come back here when I never planned to. And I remember at that time that I was asking those particular philosophical questions. Like, this particular traumatic event left me asking, who am I? Why am I here? What is my purpose? I was revisiting those questions. And I remember one time just sitting in my quiet time with the Lord, I was like, I shouldn't be revisiting these questions. Like, I should be so in tune with who I am. That identity should be so grounded that no matter what happens to me externally, I am who I am internally. And I was reminded of that saying, home is where the heart is. But when we really take that into a literal sense, that's something that's easier said than done. How do we create a sense of home internally within ourselves so that the impact of an external home, the removal, destruction, devastation of it, doesn't disrupt the internal home? Like, I still feel at home in and of myself, in and of my identity, despite the external things that has taken place in my life. And it was in those moments that I realized that a lot of my identity was being established in the city of New Orleans. Like, it was being formed and shaped by so many things there that once is not there, I'm now asking those questions. Who am I? And that was really one of the beginning points of my soul trauma recovery process. Because, like I said, I should never have to go back and revisit those questions based on an external circumstance as a result of that. And so I wanted to bring that to our attention so we can remain sensitive, empathetic, and compassionate for those who are experiencing identity homelessness. There are people who lived in those areas for decades, like, this has been their life, and now these geographical landmarks that was a significant shaping of who they are is no longer there. Their home is gone. And I bet some people are asking those questions. Who am I? What is my purpose? X, Y, and Z. Amid, what do I do next? Where am I going to stay? How am I going to rebuild? All of those things. So it's homelessness and identity homelessness happening simultaneously for some people, depending on their response to how they perceive the traumatic experience of those fires. Some may not perceive it to a point to where they're experiencing identity homelessness, but so they're only experiencing the reality of homelessness now that their home has burnt down and things of that nature. So I really wanted to just bring that up and connect those dots for us, because one of the things about the news is that they use language. If we really pay attention to the language that they use, it really desensitizes us to connecting with other human beings that are experiencing these traumatic events that we're witnessing through the news. I remember when Hurricane Katrina, like, they're calling the people in New Orleans U.S. citizen refugees. That's one of the ways of desensitizing others to where they subconsciously, there's not a heart for what's happening. Oh, those are just refugees. Like, it triggers a thought process. Oh, these are just casualties in the matter. There's certain wordplay that they use, but these are human beings with real lives, and that's experiencing great loss, and want to remain sensitive to that reality in that. So that is that with that. Is there, if I don't think there's anyone here live. If there is, please say a comment in the chat to let me know. If there's no live viewers, I'm going to go ahead and move into our closing remarks, because remember, Trauma Talk Radio is all about dialogue and conversation. So make sure you stay connected to me on all social media platforms at Freedom Coach and Miller. Make sure you visit my website to stay up to date with upcoming events and everything. Also, to grab a copy of free ebook that I have available on my website. I do have a Transforming Grief online intensive coming up next month. So, and all the information is there to register. Share with others. Share the good news of Trauma Talk Radio and how people, your friends and family, can come and have candid conversations about overcoming life trauma. Stay tuned. I have some information coming up about my Freedom and Fun Academy. So, online membership for like minded people. And it's really geared to equipping you to be a trauma informed leader in every area of your life, as well as be a support to you whenever you may be in need of some soul trauma recovery, and to have an iron sharpen iron experience as we support one another in cultivating a deeper relationship with the Lord. We will have monthly training calls, prayer and fasting, and a whole bunch of different things. So stay tuned for more information about that. Next Tuesday is the third Tuesday of the month. So there is not a Trauma Talk Radio live broadcast. Rather, we have our Trauma Talk Today show. Woo-hoo, for the month here and on Facebook simultaneously at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And the topic is life after domestic violence, transforming pain into purpose. So come on out for that particular broadcast to hear from our guest speaker. Her trauma to triumph story is going to be good. And then we'll be back for the final Tuesday of January for our final segment on defining trauma, where we're establishing spiritual trauma definitions for our final Trauma Talk Radio live broadcast of the month, January 2025. And those are all of our announcements and closing remarks. So, this is your friend and coach, Natasha Miller, signing off until next time. Peace and freedom to you all. Bye bye.